I was enamored with what you talked about in the film industry, and you talked about Shah Rukh Khan. Uh, Tell us a little bit about how he has created wealth and how he's protecting it now going ahead.
Yeah, no, great question and great space to talk about and learn from Professor Sud. And there were very interesting case studies in the Bollywood. The popular narrative in the Bollywood is that, you need to be from the families, to do well in Bollywood. And then there was one time a big, a debate on nepotism and all that. But actually the case studies which have become successful in Bollywood are actually from Bollywood families. And Shah Rukh Khan actually comes on top of that, because everybody knows him currently. When he came in here, he was completely a startup actor in a big city, Mumbai. He came with a lot of big dreams and knew nobody in Bollywood. But he built his career from scratch, because possibly he had a knack for understanding what his target audience required. And what the target audience required was, entertaining stories, right? And Indian audiences are emotional audiences. And those stories, if they can be romantic stories, nothing better than that. So he became a romantic star and, he catered to his audience. He understood that. And then after that, he continued to evolve. He didn't just, stop his journey at being the superstar. He evolved into a businessman. From a superstar doing only acting, he set up a very successful production house. And he didn't stop there itself, to his own industry. He went outside his industry and he became the owner of a sports company, which is an IPL company. Because, what he understood was entertaining audiences, right? So, and cricket is something, and Bollywood are two things, which entertains most of the Indians. So he understood that DNA, and I think that's what he kept on, scaling, his life, and that's what, the case study of Shah Rukh Khan is all about. Another interesting case study is that of Amitabh Bachchan. We know him, the version of that currently, but, he's been in this journey for the last 50 odd years. And, when he started his career with a series of flops, and he was up against a superstar which had given 15 non-stop super hits over a period of 3 years, and that's Rajesh Khanna. Amitabh Bachchan is almost thought to pack up his bags and leave the Bollywood, and he was a failed actor. And then in 1973, Zanjeer happens, which completely, was a disruptive moment for the existing superstar Rajesh Khanna. A lot of our Rajesh Khanna fans, including me. But then that's where the journey of Amitabh Bachchan as a case study starts, from completely a non-starter to giving eventually, hitting his, final moment. And then his life has been a roller coaster. He went into politics because of personal relationship, figured out he's not cut out for this. He left it, came back to the industry. And then there was a moment where he had become almost bankrupt. He went into production. I used to work for a company which had financed his car, and he had no money to pay the EMIs of the car. We confiscated the car. It used to be standing outside our office in Bombay. From that level, the man had the humility and a character. For the first time, for a superstar in Bollywood to go to the small screen, he got his break in Kaun Banega Crorepati, which resurrected his career once again. And he had no qualms about, seeking help from friends, including financial help. And these are two brilliant case studies, which tells you that at the end of the day, if you're delivering value to your stakeholders, you're grounded, you're humble, the world follows you. The work comes to you. And you have to continue to evolve. Like, he was a superstar, but, today, with his age, he continued to pick up, age-appropriate roles. He had no insecurity that I was a superstar, the angry young man hero, and I can't do small screen, I can't do small, character roles. And that's how has continued to make Amitabh Bachchan relevant, even today at the age of 83.
Rohit, you have talked in your book about the power of compounding. Now, that is something that seems to be in financial circles, a very powerful phenomena. Talk a little bit about how you look at it and why you should be thinking in terms of the short run or the long run.
Yeah. No, thanks. That's I think the core principle, the foundation of wealth creation. And also, getting rich, and not only getting rich, but staying rich. So, I've talked about compounding in two sections of my book. The first one is, as it helps you to create wealth. And that's compounding, not financially, it's compounding in life. Because, for example, see, when you're building a business, and if you're done your business or your brand as doing the right thing for your customers over a very long period of time, it becomes a very reliable brand. It's a no-surprise brand. And if it's a reliable brand, no-surprise brand, it tends to build, more trust with its audience, more and more customers. So existing customers continue to give repeat business, and more customers, they start flocking and choosing that brand is a matter of their first choice. So that business compounds, over a period of time. And I think that catches up as the time goes away. And that's the compounding in life. And we also see that in our relationships. Like even in our personal relationships have been very consistent. We are seen then become as a very reliable, relationship. And, people tend to trust you, confide in you, seek advice with you. That's compounding in general in life. Financially, the compounding basically means that your money creates money. So for example, I'll give you a simple example. At 15%, if somebody's investments are growing, in 5-year times, you double your money at 15% growth rate. In 10 years, it becomes 4x. But in 25 years, it becomes 33x. We all know about Warren Buffett. We know, but at the age of 95 plus, he's amongst the top 10 richest people in the world. But most of us wouldn't know that more than 2/3 of his net worth actually happened after he turned 60. So that's more than 50 years of compounding, right? So he's made his investment and then he stayed with those investments over a very long period of time. And as those businesses have scaled and compounded, so has his investments in him. So I think compounding, that's the reason Einstein called it the 8th wonder of the world. And it is a very simple concept, but very few are able to implement in their lives. So I would suggest that first you implement in your lives, in your personal and professional relationships, compound your brand, that's the brand of you. And then with your financial investments, when you invest, just leave it for a generation. And it will surprise you more than you've imagined.
We talk about something called deliberate practice, where, you practice the same thing every day and you expect over a period you'll become an expert at it. But deliberate practice is trying to do the same thing 1% better every day. And the magical number is that if you improve yourself by 1% a day, at the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better than you were when you started. So this is something like the power of compounding and letting it multiply and rest there.
Very true.
You talk about the power of networks. And this is something that we teach in organizational behavior, that you have weak ties and you have strong ties. The strong ties are with people you know intimately. But bigger than that is the weak tie, people you don't know that well, but who know people who could be of use to you. You had an example we were talking about with the Tata Group, Chandra. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think Mr. N. Chandra is a very remarkable, very inspiring case study for me for sure. And I guess it would be and should be for every Indian. And I'll tell you the reasons for that. Tata Group has been there probably for more than 150 odd years. And this is the first time when there is not only a non-Tata, but a non-Parsi has become the chairman of Tata's Sons. It's a very significant event in the journey of Tata Group. And in the previous question, I referred to compounding in life. This is a living manifestation of compounding of trust, which An Chandra built up with the Tata ecosystem. This is the first and last job. That's the compounding, which is benefit, which is doing that.
What we read is that he's from a very middle-class family.
Middle class, he grew up in a village. He went to a village school. He comes from a large family of 5 siblings. Very humble background, went to not IITs, but a very, maybe in the next level or even the next level engineering college, joined the Tata Groups and then all the way up, right? And this is, how did he get the reins? Because, his predecessor also had the same lineage, for whatever reasons, could not continue on the trust. And then if there was anybody else, it was N. Chandra who was invited to take over the reins. So this is, what doesn't matter where you're coming from. What matters is where you're heading to and how you live your life, right? Doesn't matter where you start your graph from, but what it matters is the direction of your graph. Eventually, every graph which goes up starts from bottom. N. Chandra is a living example of that and a compounding in life. And I think can be very inspiring for every Indian.
One thing that strikes me about him is that the students invited him to campus. He's an IMA grad. And he comes without security. He just roams around like a normal, regular person, despite the position that he has. We've been talking about cricket, and I'm very enamored with the game. And you talk about Sanjay Manjrekar and how he reports about how the Indian team behaved in their dressing room in the 80s and 90s, and how it is different today. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I think a very interesting topic, not only for you, Professor Sood, for me, I guess everybody in the room. Cricket is something which is a religion here. And I think the India's cricket has transformed from 2000 onwards. The culture which used to be there earlier in the team, the atmosphere in the dressing room, which used to be more, by a hierarchical structure. Like, maybe we would have kind of inherited from colonial times, more bureaucratic culture. So seniors actually wanted to be, the juniors to defer to them. So whenever team meetings used to happen, and Sanjay Manjrekar has spoken about it, in his memoir, that whenever team meetings used to happen in the room, in a hotel room of the coach or a manager, seniors actually will sit all over, and they would expect the juniors are all sitting on the floor. So that was the culture as a senior, junior. And I have grown up in times, most of us of my generation, when you went to your colleges, your boarding schools, there was a culture of senior and junior. Yeah. That's where ragging came from, right? And thanks to Ganguly, the Dada, when he came, Dada of India cricket, and he changed completely. He had, a sparkling talent called Virender Sehwag, right, who was completely non-stereotypical, in terms of his approach towards the game. And he was trying to play in a stereotypical manner. And he miserably failed in his initial, innings. And he got dropped when Indian team went for the Pakistani tour. And then Ganguly gave him another chance, and he told him that you play your natural game. Because Sehwag was a guy, he says, if a ball will come, if I want to hit, I will hit. I don't bother. He was a fearless guy. And after that, when the leader had a confidence in him, he went ahead and scored that 303 not out in Multan and got the, the title of the Sultan of Multan. Right? And that's what changed the culture. Ganguly just told us that play fearlessly, play your natural game. And after that, then we have now Indian cricket team which plays to win. Earlier, the Indian cricket team used to play not to lose. Yeah. And there is enough statistical, data which tells us in every sport, not just cricket, teams which win not to lose, invariably they lose the most number of times. Only teams which play to win, they are the ones which win. So I think that whole culture shifted, that at the end of the day, there is no hierarchy. Everybody is a player. Yes, there could be a mutual respect. That's the reason this whole world of bhai comes in. Ganguly bhai or a Dhoni bhai. We never used to hear it earlier like a Kapil bhai or a Kapil Paji used to be there, but no Gavaskar bhai, right? The culture completely shifted, and that's how I think the performance, the best came out, started coming out of these cricketers. And that's what we see in the Indian cricket team now. They are a fearless team. Doesn't matter where they're playing, India or outside, they just play fearlessly.
That's an interesting, but the UK example, Britain, England, the baseball that they play recently has not given them results. Now, of course, maybe they've gone overboard with that concept of just attacking all the time, because they lost miserably in Australia right now, 3-1 or 4-1.
Yeah, that's right. And this section I want to touch upon, this which I referred to, is in a chapter called Ego versus Self-Respect. Yeah. And it's a very interesting aspect. When you read the chapter, you'll get the drift of it. And this example of cricket, Sanjay Manjrekar has given as part of that chapter. That, at the end of the day, when you're seeking adulation from outsiders, then, the ego takes over. And then, it could have a detrimental impact on the wealth that you've created.
Something that we have studied and we look at is this ability to be intellectually humble. And companies want that, the ability to recognize what you don't know and learn from your failures. Now, you have talked about the winner's curse. Expand a little bit about that from your book.
Yeah, so this winner's curse is also from this chapter of ego versus self-respect. So it's a very interesting situation.
Ego versus self-respect.
Versus self-respect. So, it's a very interesting situation when auctions happen. So when auctions happen, so what happens? Everybody's bidding for the prize. There is a reserve price, and then everybody starts bidding. And somebody who wants to really win that auction has to continue to raise the bid, right? And the winner's curse is that if you are really hung upon that, you want this at any price, then you'll just keep on raising your bid, even if that bid has gone much beyond the intrinsic worth of that asset. But your ego is telling you that you are a big guy, and this is something which only you can buy, and you will buy it come what may at any price, right? And that is where it starts eating. That thought process actually starts eating into your wealth. So the winner's curse is that the winner doesn't see that to win at any cost, you start eating into your wealth. right? Because you're driven more by ego and not by your self-respect, which is self-worth. That's the reason I talk about that, to your own self-worth or self-management is very, very important to keep your net worth. If your self-worth is weak, your net worth will not be sustainable over a long period of time because you'll keep on bidding and keep on buying assets much higher than the intrinsic worth of that asset. So that's the winner's curse.
We hear from in finance journals, finance research, that something like 70-80% of all M&As are all driven by ego. They don't succeed. And the market punishes you when you go in for an acquisition, especially if it is an unrelated acquisition.
And can I add one interesting point, important point for the audience, and in my work, I see this, and people who are related to finance know this. There's something called, when you're investing, is called the quality of management, which are running those businesses. And they get measured by one very important parameter is called capital allocation decisions which those management take. And if those capital allocation decisions are taken on the basis of ROI, they are quality managements. If they are taken on the basis of, no, I want to be the biggest, I want to be the largest, I want to show to my industry that I can expand, or I want to be the biggest but not the best, right? Then that's a sign of something which is a pretentious management, and then markets actually don't give a high multiple to such managements because they know that this is a management which eventually can erode the net worth of the company because they're driven by hubris and not logical, sensible business principles.
See, Rohit, I teach entrepreneurship and you are a classical entrepreneur. I've stopped teaching it now, or I do it in a limited extent because I'm more an academic. But I noticed that you talk about solving a real problem. I find a lot of my students, and this is common not only in India, but I believe in the US too, where Y Combinator reports data, find a solution and then search for a problem that they can fit that solution into. Now, doesn't that go exactly the reverse of what you argue in your book?
Great question. And I would say that would be a similar situation as, the cart ahead of the horse.
Yeah.
See, what is a business at the end of the day? And I kind of describe this, parts of the book in a very simple manner with some real life examples that every business has got a common thread. There's no difference whether there's somebody who's selling chai on the street to somebody who's running this hotel. That at the end of the day, every business is solving some problem for the customer for which the customer is willing to pay a price, right? So any business which is built around its stakeholders' needs and wants, which is, the customers essentially to begin with, what the customer needs and what the customer wants, and then also the people who are going to serve that customer because they also need a scalable career, is going to survive and compound and grow and stay for a long period of time. But any business, like for example, which comes with a very romanticized idea, right? Which is not thinking anything at all about the stakeholders, but the idea takes over the target audience. Then it's only luck because of which it can, it can pass. Otherwise, very little chances that it will survive because you're not catering, you're not catering to adding value to your target audience, which is first your customers. And if the customer is not paying for it, even the people who are working for the business, will not have those jobs for a long period of time. It will not be a growing business. They will not have a scalable career in that business. So that business is not really going to last for a point of time. That's the reason if you see in the new age entrepreneurs, they are really mesmerized with, very many romanticized ideas. I give you an example of Zomato. When Zomato came, they introduced the idea of Yelp, which was a restaurant listing, app in the Western developed markets. It didn't work in India at all because in India, we do not have a culture, Indians eating out as much. It is improving now, but nowhere close to Western markets because we have helps at home. And then they continued to pivot the business, and now we know their business is largely driven by quick commerce, which is quick deliveries to your homes. That initial business, so that problem, no customer was wanting to be solved. They didn't want to tell me which restaurants to go in my city or my neighborhood because they're happy to cook at home and eat it here. But now they're solving a problem for the customer, they figured out, and now they're growing. So at the end of the day, see, you have to solve a problem for which the customer is going to pay you. Otherwise, the customer is not going to pay you for something, which is your dream.
So this is for Rohit. Rohit, if you were to choose one, 8% study return with compounding through EPF, Employment Provident Fund, versus 11% return through stock market, susceptible to black swan events at an individual level.
Any day, 11% because there is an opportunity cost of, growing your money, compounding your money at 3% per annum year on year, but with one caveat. You are not going to look at or get bothered by the ups and downs of the market before 10 years, right? So you have to stay in the game because compounding effect starts playing after a bare minimum staying in the game for 10 years. Like Sachin Tendulkar also became Sachin Tendulkar because he played for 24 long years, right?
So
if
Rohit,
we-
don't give any more advice.
Yeah.
It's all chargeable and I'm his agent. So I'll meet you after the program and I'll give you my Google Pay number.
You know, I'm 62 now, started with nothing, and I have many friends, and in this generation, we have created some wealth, let's say a couple of $1 million. In Indian rupees, it's a lot of money, and if it's well invested at 12-15%, it'll compound every 5-6 years or so. What's the best way to pass it on to the next generation? Unfortunately, we didn't bother much about, like Vinita ma'am did in, while bringing up their children, so that they don't blow it away. And now, of course, going forward, the environments become very risky, where people will lose jobs very quickly, and everything is changing. So what's your advice?
Yeah, so first of all, congratulations, sir. You've done well, you created wealth, and you would have in that process must have created economic opportunity for people around you. So coming straight away to your question, see, the best way to pass on wealth to your generation is to prepare them to start steering the responsibility of the legacy that you have created. It's a family's legacy. So these are your, the wealth you have created is not life savings which need to be spent. It has to be compounded even by the next generation. So you can truly do it in a succession planning format like any business family would do. They'll bring in the kids first, by first giving with the right values. Now you prepare them for owning this wealth as future owners of this wealth and compounding it for next 25 years. That's the way you build the foundation with your children.